Let's start with the Oz report then. This is the Oz report for January 22nd, a Saturday as usual. And we're going to start with Cerebral accelerators. So if you're into the event, you've noticed that, or into events in general, you've noticed that in addition to the brain freeze Cerebral accelerators that we had coming into the game in the Christmas event, we now have the convergent Cerebral accelerators. These are all there to increase the rate at which skill points are earned, and they are dropping from these events, and that has several effects on the game. Well, one is if you're looking at the ISK efficiency of these accelerators, then you can see that in terms of ISK per SP, these convergent Cerebral accelerators, they've already assimilated to the brain freeze ones. So they are, since they have the same effect with the basic, extended, and potent of both types, the convergent ones are going to be valid for a month longer. So while the brain freezes, I think they expire on February 8th, the convergents are going to be there until March. You can see that the convergent ones, they should be worth a little bit more as they are, because they are there for longer. If you know what you're doing, then you should be buying the brain freeze ones because they're slightly cheaper, and right now you can still take them. They are incredibly cheap if you compare them to large and small skill injectors, and also if you compare them to expert and master at arms Cerebral accelerators. That's the other effect that this whole thing has had. So if you look at master at arms Cerebral accelerators, their price has dropped rapidly over the last week, and that is because I'm guessing it's because most people aren't using those, they're using the event ones. That's a big misunderstanding a lot of times anyway, though, because the master at arms Cerebral accelerators, nobody should be using them under 50 million anyway, because under 50 million large and small skill injectors are simply the way more efficient way of gaining ISK. It's cheaper and it's quicker. So a lot of this is a misunderstanding, but you can see that the added availability of Cerebral accelerators has hurt the master at arms Cerebral accelerator market, which has crashed. Might be a good time to jump in on those, because it's a question of how many Cerebral accelerators will CCP be introducing in the future, and I think right now there's an overabundance of it. If you look at the other ones, the expert Cerebral accelerators, those are the ones that are valid for longer. So you take them and their effect lasts longer. So it's not as tedious as the other ones. They've actually stayed quite stable in value. So you can see that people are obviously or replacing the master at arms, but not the extended ones or not the expert ones. So this just makes it clear that people aren't comparing the ISK per SP value. They're much more making spur of the moment decisions, and not necessarily quantitative decisions. But that's nothing new. If we look at excavator mining drones, we talked about those last week. You can see that since they were nerfed, the price has dropped significantly. After our stream last week, they briefly rose. So this is some of this is the Oz effect, because I said they were trading below build cost actually, and they were. They recovered, but now they are dropping down again, which just indicates more people selling them more and more. So now again they're trading at just about build price. The BPCs are worth a lot less than they used to be. And so if you believe in them coming back in the long run, as I said last week, then you can jump in on that market now. It's a bit risky, but certainly it really can't drop all that much more than it is where it is today. It's more a question of will it ever recover or not. But it's a nice gamble that I'm willing to take. I have stocked up on some of them. If you're looking at some main components of it, drone capillary fluid, elite drone AI. Those are things that make up an excavator mining drone, and also augmented drones. You can see that their prices dropped accordingly as well. Similar idea there. It's probably a lot of people getting rid of these components because they're not building excavators anymore. It might be a good time to pick up these components cheaply, because, as I said, augmented drones, integrated drones, they are still valuable. So in the long run, it might be a good time to capitalize on a market overreaction here. Let's talk about filaments quickly. There are electrical filaments, the cataclysmic and the raging ones. That's T5, T6 filaments of the electric type. They have fallen a bit out of grace. Obviously, not a lot of people running them at the moment, or they're preferring to run other ones like the exotic ones. The abyss is cyclical, so I think these are guaranteed to come back at some point. So, depending on your patience and your capital that you have, it might be a good time to invest in some of these electrical filaments, waiting for the next big electrical fit come around, or for the next chip balance to change things up. If we're looking at Moongoo, there are several reasons why I've included some of these. First of all, technetium this week, it absolutely spiked. So the market was completely bought out, which is interesting because the technetium market itself is, I think, like a 7 billion a day market. It's a rather small Moongoo market. I think most of it goes into capital ships. So there isn't a whole lot of demand, which is reflected in the price right now. Plus, CCP doubled the amount of Moongoo in New Eden, so you would expect the price to come down. Nevertheless, somebody came in and bought out the entire market. It wasn't easy to liquidate after that buyout. I have a ton of stuff out there. I tried to get rid of it as good as I could. But you can see that it's already dropped back down to 10,000. It was up here at 12, even 15 or so, but it has since then dropped back down to 10. Nevertheless, if you were able to buy at 7 or 8, which was quite easy in the last few months, then technetium right now you want to get rid of it. If you look at things like platinum or dysprosium, then you're talking about very, very low availability in the market. And last week we had some of those items that actually spiked after we talked about it. Platinum was one of it. But dysprosium, platinum, go out there, use your Adam for Eve graphs to check the availability in the market. You can, on Adam for Eve, you can quickly see how much of it is left in the market. If you go and look at any of these items. So, for example, if you go look at platinum right now, that was the wrong one. If you look at platinum. If you go at look at platinum and look at the graph that is below the actual price graph, you can see the downward sloping availability in green right here of sales in the market, of sell orders in the market. So you can see that right now the availability of platinum is rather low, price is increasing. And that is typically a good time to jump in on the market if you're interested in short-term price spikes that are caused by the market being bought dry. Cesium and titanium are just two that are just very, very, very cheap, right? So, if you're looking to invest somewhere, be aware that yes, Moongoo was doubled a month ago or so. However, that should be already reflected a little bit in here, and right now it's just a phase of very low production. So jumping in on raw materials while production is low is can't be a very stupid idea. Let's look at PI. Robotics, another market that was completely bought out this week. So robotics is a huge market, double-digit billions every day, and it was completely bought dry. It has settled now around 70k, but even 70k is much higher than it was. So right now, try to liquidate your robotics if you can. Really, the only way you will be able to do that in the long run is if you have standing sell orders out there that get liquidated while people are buying out the market. That's the only way to efficiently do that. It's very difficult to do it after the fact, because then it's just a race back to the bottom of everyone trying to liquidate their assets. So let's look at some other PI. There's a lot of implant production going on, as you can tell by cryoprotectant solution, gel matrix, biopaste, synthetic synapses. These are all PI items that are directly related to implant production. And even though I thought that they would crash after the Nexus event because the Nirvana and I think Rupture blueprints weren't dropping anymore, they have continued to increase. And it's not only those implants, it's just the implant market is very hot right now, including crystals. People are going nuts with implants, and so those are PI goods that if you have a lot of them stockpiled somewhere, go sell them right now. It's a good time to do so. Some PI items that are cheap right now are broadcast nodes and self-harmonizing power cores, for example. They are trading below their 52-week averages, and that's just because among other things, structures are being built a lot less, and so these aren't in high demand. If it's similar to the Moongoo, except that these weren't recently doubled in availability. So these are two markets that I'm stocking up on because they have just recently dropped a lot, and I'm waiting for at some point production to go back up. Because, as you know, either production will go up or the game will die. That's just a fact. Salvage. Salvage, we have, again, two different reasons why I listed stuff here. One is limited availability. Logic circuits, super cheap on the buy side right now. Availability is basically gone. So there's not a lot in here, and if there are these big orders there, the price differences are just big. So this market is prone to just spike. Logic circuits, power circuits, same thing. Somebody dropped a ton of these onto the market. The price has dropped a lot, and now at 300k, really there's only one way. This should be going back up at some point. So. Yeah. Have a look at those. There's an oversupply right now, and you can probably make some money out there. Burnt logic circuits have had a serious price drop for the same reason, probably oversupply currently. Maybe event-based, drone transceiver as well. Just vast price drops with production not really running hot. That oversupply just goes straight up on price. It's your chance if you can hold on to them for a while. And finishing salvage with enhanced ward consoles. That's the third item after Technetium and robotics that was bought out this week. So enhanced ward consoles were basically gone. You can see here on the first page the price goes up to 4.3 million. So this is a huge margin, and the price spike, you can see 4.3 million is up here. So the price spike was huge from that buyout this week. This is not something you want to buy right now. This is something you want to sell. Some random items to finish up on. We have the Agency Parallancia Dose 1. These dropped like all of the agency drugs. The price dropped in the winter event. It hasn't really recovered. It's a pretty high volume item, high volume and high value item. So you know, you can pick these up for 3.6 million right now. That's a really good price. If you're holding on to any of these multispectrum energized membranes, the Centum or the Corpum A-type, they have absolutely spiked in price. And you know, there was a discussion on our server going on. There was several explanations of why that's happening. Broadly speaking, it has to do with certain alliances buying fits for their ships, and so you know, people were buying these in larger quantities, and since the market availability isn't that big, the prices spike. I've made a ton of money on these. These are cool anyway because they're just, it's just whether they're spiking or not, they're a big volume market. So when these prices do change, it's a big market, it's liquid, so you can actually capitalize on your gains there. Fullerite C540, it's similarly to other raw materials. These are very much used in capital production, and since there's no capital production going on because it's not profitable, basically there's an oversupply, and you can pick these up incredibly cheap right now. Again, I don't know if capital production is going to pick back up again, but it can't get worse than no production, really. And Morphite, it's hovering around 50. The reason I want to mention it is because this margin is actually quite nice. There's a 10% margin on here, on a super high use item. I mean, the Morphite market is high double-digit billions a day. So if you can capitalize on this margin, then you can day trade this. This is not a medium to long term, although it could also be. I'm actually holding it for the long term as well, but this is definitely also a day trading item right now. Okay, that's it for the Oz report today. We'll go back to the regular stream, and I'll see you guys next week.